We're going to do a little bit of teaching stuff today with Destiny in particular and the Hunter class. And we're going to try to basically talk about some things that would normally go like unheard of. Complexities in Hunter movement and why I feel that it's one of the best competitive classes in the game. And I might be able to show you why. Titan skating is one thing, but we're going to get into it very shortly. Before we do, though, I'm going to go ahead and do some warm-up matches real quick, so that we can kind of get our brain and, you know, the old PvP kind of mindset, so that we can kind of like stir up some of those things I want to talk about. So, if you're interested in Hunter stuff, or you've never played a Hunter and you've never known if you wanted to play a Hunter, maybe this will be one of the reasons why you'll give it a shot. You're just going to have to give me a little bit of time, though, to get acclimated.
20 minutes later.
So the Hunter class in general, I see a lot of people like who play comp rather often, pretty much throwing around the old like Titan's the best subclass, this and that, because you can Titan skate and all that nonsense, right? Okay, but I'd like to say that even if you take Titan skating into account, the best class in any competitive format within Destiny, especially in the comp playlist, is going to be Hunter. And the reason why I say that is because you have the availability to have extreme agility when you need it. Now, it's not necessarily about speed, it's about disengaging. Okay, if you challenge a corner here around B, right, you can be like all the way out here, shade step, disengage completely, right? If you're on any other subclass and you commit this far out from this corner against a team shot from there or there, you're dead 9 times out of 10. The only way you can adjust that like movement is to try to sprint and then turn and like slide. Now, if you do it right, and sometimes you can survive, disengaging is about keeping movement speed fast and unpredictable. So you have to give up some of the unpredictable nature for speed sometimes. Like for instance, like sliding is something that can be done relatively easy for most people. If you have the keybinds for it and the reaction to do it, you can just kind of turn and slide away. Now on console, it's going to be harder with the lower sensitivity. Most people play around like I would say 4 to 7 maybe, or 2 to 7. Anywhere upwards beyond 7, you start finding some people struggling at tracking targets with that like aim assist system. So, disengaging, right? On a Hunter, you have the thing called Shade Step. Most of you guys pretty much know this. Now, Shade Step works very similar like it did in D1, but it also works kind of like Twilight Garrison did in D1. The reason being, if you're holding a direction and then you hit the button, the Shade Step will go in that direction, right? But it can be augmented with your mouse. So, say if I only want to Shade Step forward, oh, I don't know, we'll go like around this. Like if I want to go around this corner and I don't want to have to hold W and D and shade step like diagonally, I can hold W, hit T, and turn my mouse to the right, right? Basically, you're allowing yourself to augment your movement with your mouse position, okay? Same thing with controller, all that nonsense. Now, if you keep that in mind, you can sometimes like shortcut like a dodge or an evade without having to mash nearly as many keys, right? If I'm this far up, right, and I am strafing and fighting, and I don't want to have to hit or focus on hitting A and S and shade step to go like back like this around this corner, I can just shade step backwards, turn my mouse right, and I will back into this corner just like this. Little things like that may seem like they're not very important, but when you are doing, you know, hundreds of actions per minute and you don't necessarily have the time to focus on certain movement stuff like that, you have an awesome potential to still survive without like overloading your brain with inputs. So we'll cover more of that here in a minute. But there's also the jump. Some people kind of like find that this jump isn't very effective. I would argue you are crazy. This is the best jump in the game, the shotgun, like hands down. Okay, when it comes to challenging corners, when you hit about 2,000 glory points, I almost said glory porn. Awesome, nice job, Brian. You start noticing people don't necessarily slide shotgun challenge corners as much. They start baiting corners. So if I have a radar ping from an individual in this area, right, I'll be here, and if I think they're going to challenge based on how they're playing, either them being hyper aggressive or them being stupid, one or the other. There's a difference between being hyper aggressive and being stupid. Some people are good at being hyper aggressive and smart, but a lot of people are being hyper aggressive and stupid, especially around the 2K glory range. It's not like a jab at anyone that's around that range. It's just the thought process around the majority of the players that are playing around that range. They get really, really tied into this. I have to slide challenge and shotgun corners always. But then you start finding players who adapt to that, and then they start jump challenging, right? So if I'm thinking about challenging this doorway, you could be in this position, that position, this position, this position, or that position, right? You could break it up into like vectors or like sectors in particular. Now, being at the corners here, you kind of get screwed if someone shotgun challenges and they guess correctly on your position, which in most cases is pretty easy to do. Also, it can kind of give you a bit of a trouble, or a little bit of trouble when they have grenades. If they toss a grenade here or here, you're getting hit by it, right? So if you jump challenge, you can either decide to jump challenge and stay along this position, or you can jump challenge and stay along this position, or you can jump over the door. Now, over the door has a little bit of risk too, because if, for instance, I jump over the top of this and I'm going to the right there, if I slide in like this and look left, and you are in the middle of falling down looking like this, it might be difficult to move your mouse to the left and catch that. Also, you're going to have inaccuracy in the air too. So, depending on what kind of players you're playing, you're going to get in the habit of trying to choose a way you want to challenge like doors. If you're weakened, I highly, highly recommend not jumping over the door, because if you screw up or you hit a shape for some stupid reason and you get stuck and you fall down right in front of the door, you'll die, right? So keeping in mind, try to stay on the edges of the doors, right? Guy comes in, he slides like through this for some odd reason or jumps through this, you can turn shotgun melee, whatever you got to do. Now, something to learn about hunter jumps in particular. This is how it worked in D1 as well. Your mobility stat will determine your vertical velocity while jumping and your total height achieved while jumping, okay? So if I want to do a baby jump, I just tap my spacebar real quick. If I want to do a high jump, I will hit spacebar and hold. Now I'm going to tap jump and shoot. Right about there, height, right? Hold, shoot. You can see the increase in height, right? So we can try this one more time. Probably better off doing this with like an SMG, to be honest. All right. That's the height there for tapping. And I tapped again like an idiot. And that is the hold. So you can see the hold is still way higher than the tap. Now, depending how quickly you tap, it'll depend on your height. You can see there's a little bit of variance there. So keep that in mind as well. Now, that's something that comes with practice. If you play a lot of Hunter, eventually you get to a point where you feel comfortable in knowing when you need to tap jump and when you need to hold. But it also works with standard jumps, to my knowledge. So if I want to make it up on this and there are other players over there, Destiny 2 is a mantling system, okay? If you hold jump, you can gain enough vertical height to mantle, okay? Now, sometimes the mantling system doesn't work, which is kind of frustrating. But if I tap jump, you can see that it almost looks like I'm not gonna make it. Now we can test that real quick by doing tap, shoot, you know, and then do hold, shoot, and you can see there is a slight difference. That's how the Hunter class works. It's very strange sometimes with this movement, but there is a method to the madness, okay? Knowing when you do and do not need to focus on doing your second jump. Now, most people who are new to this game or new to Hunter, they'll probably do this and jump. Guess what? You're playing comp and you do that, okay? And someone is there or here, and they're looking at you like a dum-dum floating through the air, you are going to die. And 9 times out of 10, the only way you survive that is if they miss shots and if you land and then shade step back off the object. But the problem being, if you don't complicate that shade step movement, you're going to die. Again, because there's desync in video games, and in particular, whenever you enter a shade step around an object, you are most likely going to still receive damage behind said object, just very slightly. So keep that in mind. So instead of like just shade stepping straight back and not complicating it, you can just shade step backwards and move your mouse like this or something. You can either get behind this box or get around here to the side. Now, line of sight, super, super, super important as well. Understanding where you are within your three-dimensional environment, right? If I challenge, oh, I don't know, let's just say I'm challenging this door, okay, and I'm weak, and I'm trying to disengage, and he has a pulse or an AR, okay? Most people would try to get back off this object here. The problem being, if you do that, they can still see you. You'll cut basically in their line of sight. You can still receive damage. By the time you fall down here, you're probably dead. So what you got to do is try to use objects like boxes and walls and pillars as things to deny line of sight. If I am disengaging here, I can either chill here and risk getting grenaded or shot from someone from over there or challenge up over the ear with a shotgun. Instead, I can do this. I can slide and then jump and hold and back off, and I've still denied line of sight that entire time to that object there. So again, all these little things happen all the time, but you'll never have time to talk about them because it just comes with gameplay, like what do you want to call it, evolution, right? So little things. This is a pretty good map for this. There's a few locations that kind of create issues. For instance, like this tunnel. Hunter has had the availability to increase his movement speed by rapidly jumping in small height like regions. This would be a great one if they didn't design this like a potato. The problem being is I believe, yep, they render these pillars here, and as you can see, your head can go up into the open space there, but then when you hit the pillar there, you bounce off.
2 hours later.
But you guys know me. I have an issue with shapes. I have an issue with map design, and in Destiny as a whole, there's a lot of things they could do better. Things like this, right? Frustrating, really annoying to run into. Honestly, invisible wall to there, here, all the way down to there. Same thing with these stupid routes. Those things should not be rendered. But that's for another lesson. Again, we've covered jumping. We've covered basic shade step movement. Here's another thing in mid-engagement. So sometimes when you're out in the open, right, and you like challenge 2 people, and you're trying to, I don't know, win an engagement against one of them. In most cases, when you enter a 1v2 in your primary range, you're probably not going to win it unless you're using something like Luna's Howl. You hit every shot and abuse that bonus damage, or they suck. Now, in most cases, Destiny has had this really bad habit of implementing skill-based matchmaking, so the odds of them both being a potato are pretty unlikely. The quick play matchmaking supposedly doesn't have any skill-based matchmaking, but honestly, we don't know at this point. It feels very, very low if there is any, but you still run into situations where you will get consistently 2v1'd and you will lose because of the time to kill, even though it is faster. So, ways to kind of prevent that from causing as many issues. If you are playing PC, this will more affect you than console. Console can be difficult to do this with, but sometimes it'll work as well. When you're fighting, you can do standard strafe left and right, and you can mix that up any way you want, this and that. You can even throw a couple crouches in there if that's your thing, But one of the things that I see a lot of people not really remember that they can do is that you can still fight while you crouch slide. Not necessarily sliding at them, but sliding side to side. Now, the problem being is in Forsaken, they introduced a new, I'm going to call it a mechanic, but I don't think it was intended, and I'm almost positive this is new and it's not something that's been in the game, because I've noticed I've been getting really stuck a lot in some of my crouches. Now, I play on I play on hold crouch and hold sprint. That basically means that if I want to sprint, I have to hold forward, W, and hold shift. I let go of shift, I stop sprinting. I reapply shift, I start sprinting. I have to hold it down. Do the same thing for crouch. If I want to crouch, I have to hold it down. If I let it go, I uncrouch. Hold down, let it go, etc. Now, I don't know if this happens as much on toggle crouch, but occasionally you will slide, go airborne, challenge, and still end up in crouch, even though you're letting go of it. Now, the reason being why that's frustrating is that you can get stuck in crouch, and when you're crouching, you lose mobility while you're strafing, right, as a punishment for lowering your overall position size, right? So, comes with a risk, but you're playing 1v2 potentially. You can slide challenge. It's something that can happen. Now, this might be more useful for individuals playing with like 140 RPM hand cannons or 110s, because it allows you to change your character position in a mannerism that necessarily promotes an ability to survive. But it comes at a cost of a potential skill gap, right? If you're a potato at aiming, you're probably going to struggle with trying to slide and fight all at the same time. It's going to be difficult, but with some practice, you might find yourself surviving. Now, on mouse, this is a lot easier than it is on controller, but it still can be done. For instance, when I'm playing, when I played console, and I played console for like 10 plus years, and I'm not terrible at it. When I was playing, even in the Destiny 2 beta, and we were playing some organized matches, some comp games and this and that, you still found yourself challenging corners while sliding and pre-firing as much on controller than PC, because on controller you change your aim sometimes based on aim assist, right? Not even about having visual acknowledgement of a player being there, but feeling a player being there because your screen is moving slower than it previously was. On mouse you don't get that, so you have to be a little bit more choosy and when you shoot sometimes, but at the added advantage of being able to be pinpoint accurate. So being mindful when you challenge corners while sliding and firing, it can be useful, but again, skill gap is going to determine how proficient you are at it. So just keep it in mind. When it comes to shade stepping mid-engagement, don't do singular shade step dodges just in one direction in most cases. It's not going to go well for you. Most people are pretty understanding when it comes to how people use shade step right now. Okay. It's not rocket science. Most people don't know how to use it well. They just don't. Most people don't even move their mouse when they shade step. They're just like, oh boy, and then they keep fighting, right? Well, the problem is if you get someone that's good at shade stepping, they can make you look stupid, okay? On controller, at least on the beginning of part of Destiny 2 and on Destiny 1, shade stepping negated aim assist. In a sandbox that has extremely high aim assist profiles, you have to be very mindful on the impact that shade step has. So on controller, if you know that aim assist is negated during a shade step, in some cases, if you're low on ammo, it's better to stop shooting, right? Wait till that aim assist comes back and then begin your firing process again. Now, I believe that has changed, or if there is no quote-unquote aim assist, it is only tied to the actual shade step animation and not any time after if you use invis or anything like that, but it's still problematic. On PC, not as much. If you are fighting a player in this doorway and I'm out in the open here and I'm weakened, and I'm holding left and I'm strafing, I can strafe and spin my mouse and do anything I want in regards to movement. You can make a shade step look ridiculously complicated. Again, if I'm strafing left, I don't have time to strafe right and then hit shade step, or if I'm playing like I do with weird mouse and keyboard finger placement, sometimes strafing right and hitting shade step can be problematic because I was just previously shift sprinting, and that causes my fingers to move their position on my keyboard. Not a good way to play. Probably a big problem for me. But anyways, if I'm strafing left and I want to go right, I can begin my strafe, you know, left, shade step, and then go this way, and then spin back around and challenge. It all depends on what strafe pattern you're currently locked into, when you hit your shade step key, and how you want to augment that shade step position with your mouse. Your mouse is a very powerful tool when it comes to movement change. A lot of people don't really realize that, right? Standard like thought process is, well, it's just used for aiming and looking around and doing things, but in a game with a movement system like this, it can be very, very strong. And most people don't give it the time of day, right? Takes a lot of time to understand every mechanic, but after a while you will start to grasp some of these. Another thing I wanted to talk about is sometimes when you're weakened and you still have a shade step up, you can gain some advantage. Now, you guys have played Destiny, and most of you anyways, have played Destiny for a long time. You've probably ran into somebody who likes emoting around corners to gain that third-person advantage. Personally, I find it to be rather cheesy, and I don't really enjoy it, and I wish they would have just taken it out of comp completely. Because sitting here like this, you know, chilling and staring at a corner and waiting for someone to push around that corner, that seems silly. That seems lazy. Doesn't seem very fun, right? But some people have also made the point of, well, if you don't mind, or if you hate emoting and stuff, well then how come you don't mind people shade stepping and using their, you know, Phoenix Dive or their Warlock Rift or their Titan Shield, blah blah blah. Well, the fact of the matter is this is still tying an ability to a cooldown. You're gaining potential third-person information by shade stepping and looking around. That is only up when your cooldown is up, right? You can't just do it indefinitely, which makes it okay in my eyes. So, just because you have a shade step up and you're weak and you don't necessarily have a place to shade step to, again, you can do shade step straight back and potentially move your mouse a little bit to gain some information, or you can shade step forward. I always recommend shade stepping forward. As long as you're on a flat surface, you'll basically just run into the object and you won't risk getting like caught out in the open. So you can just basically gain information. Very brief amount on where players are, if needed, with said shade step. Same thing works for Warlock Rift and Titan Shield. The worst thing you can do on a Titan, and this is with a lot of time invested, is not move your mouse when you use your Titan Shield. When you pop a Titan Shield, you get stuck in a locked-in animation that you can basically cause yourself to look around corners. So if I place a Titan Shield like here, I can turn my mouse to the right, and I will see everything over here because of how third-person animations work in this game. Same thing goes with shade step, though. So we covered basic, like, dodging, I guess, with shade step. We covered some disengagement practices, like line of sighting targets, pretty important. Also, managing when you need to do your jumps, right? Understanding when you need to tap jump and when you need to hold jump because you fell further, right? Very important. There's a difference in the way the jump behaves based on when you tap it, when you hold it, all that nonsense. We've talked about shade stepping mid-engagement. Can make people look stupid by doing like this, you know, and then just re-engaging. You know, you could do a bunch of weird little things that cause your hitbox to change very drastically. Again, one of the reasons why this class is probably the best in comp is its ability to change its position very quickly, right? On top of that, it's super when paired correctly and used in the right situation can do a whole lot. I would say Blade Barrage right now is probably the most consistent and like almost like overpowered super in the game due to the fact that it's got like an extreme damage negation on top of the ability to put out extreme damage in multiple locations. It's great at shutting down supers, it's great at killing multiple people on screen, and has an auto aim element to it, and again, damage resistance. Arc Strider, on the other hand, I can't speak too much on. I haven't used it a whole lot. I've only started using it the last couple days here. But something that I wanted to show you as well, and I'm only going to be able to show you this once because I'm not playing Mayhem. Shade Stamping Arc Strider is infinite. You can do as many of them as you want, right? So I just use my Shade Step there. I can slide pop my super, and then I can still Shade Step around, but this is more of a movement thing. Now, what you don't want to run at them like this and just keep Shade Stepping, right? That's just silly. What you want to do is try to move your mouse around. You're going to give up some of the position change towards them, but you can give yourself the availability to cause your hitbox to move very drastically, right? Very, very, very important. You can still Shade Step in Golden Gun. You cannot Shade Step mid throwing knife in regards to the Barrage super. Keep that in mind. It takes a while for me to realize that I'm using my Shade Step key mid super because I don't use that in any other class. But I'm learning, and I think over time it'll be very effective. Very effective. So pay attention to the radar on the top left, right? So you see it there, you see me hold crouch, you see me disappear, and then pulse, right? That pulse is like every second, okay? Now, if I run and tap crouch, I'm only off radar for a split second throughout the entirety of that crouch being applied. Pay attention to it again, tap crouch, it literally just blinks, and then I'm back on radar full length again. So in order to stay off radar longer, you need to hold slide and then let go. Now, again, sliding in this game is a little wonky sometimes, and you get caught in it playing hold crouch. But the reason I prefer hold crouch is that I don't want to have to accidentally hit crouch and not unhit crouch and then get stuck in crouch while fighting, right? Lowers your mobility. So playing hold crouch, if I want to challenge this doorway and stay off radar as much as possible because there are people around this corner, I'm going to run hold crouch and then sprint at them and then fire versus a standard, tap crouch and then fire. Now, if there's player challenging this really close and I think I'm going to be cut on time and I want to have my fingers to be ready for that, I'm going to run and tap crouch and then fire instead of holding, okay? Big difference on when you want to do this. Do you prefer one jump over the other and why? Yes. I prefer control jump. It's about character position change. So a way we can show this is, let's find a nice flat area. I don't want to hit my head either. Will I hit my head here? Yes, I will. Let's do this. Fuck it. So I'm gonna position myself here, okay? Or I'm gonna strafe and I'm gonna jump, right? And then I'm going to show you the position that I am in when I land. So if I'm strafing, I jump, double jump, land. I covered to here, right? So the character position change from that to, did I go from here? I think I went from here. Pretty sure I went from this one. Maybe. I think I went from that one. I went from the middle one. All right. So I can change from, let's see, 2 fence lengths worth of position over the course of my entire jump. Now that was with me holding. This is with me tapping, landing. Let's try the hold. Okay, that's about right then. So hold, I can go even further. So when it comes to changing my location, control jump allows me to basically go further, right? Also, it's not bad at going vertically, right? And it's pretty good at still like trying to instill a little bit of like jumping over door mechanics. If you use something like triple jump, it will allow you to get an occasional kill here and there, because when you normally jump once with a hunter, you produce a very predictable falling pattern, and snipers love that, and so do shotgunners. If I come around this corner and you're too high up to get a one-hit kill, you're going to wait till you fall down more, and I'm going to pick you out of the air with a shotgun, right? Triple jump, when used correctly, if someone comes around the corner, they jump, or not they jump, they come in slide, they try to shotgun as you're falling, and then you jump one more time, you can throw that aim off. So occasionally, triple jump can be useful. It's also pretty nice at trying to do like evades off of objects. Like if I want to slide off of here, I can just baby jump if there's a guy there, and then baby jump again, and then mantle, etc. And it'll keep my head out of line of sight. But like I said, you give up the availability of instantaneous player position change. It complicates your hitbox movement, but it doesn't do a great job at getting you to cover or locations quickly, right? If I try to jump challenge just with shotgun, you'll notice that my weapon lowered twice. That's because I had to jump twice to do a shotgun challenge there. Every single time you enter a jump animation, you basically lose the availability to fire. I'll show you after I get some ammo here. So I will try to fire the whole time. You'll see how both of those firing interpretations were like augmented by the jump. Every single time I hit the jump for a certain amount of time, I am incapable of firing my weapon. Right? Same thing goes for shotguns, and believe me, I hate this because it's frustrating as hell. If I jump and I try to shotgun in the middle of that augmented time, I cannot fire my weapon. My weapon ADSs and it appears to blank. That's because of this weird animation lock. I don't agree with it, but it's their game. They're going to do what they want. Very frustrating. So if you look at triple jump as well, this could be something that would be taking away from that, because you then have 2 interrupts per jump instead of 1. If I use control jump, I can achieve the same height, not high jump, rest, or strafe jump is what it's called. If I use strafe jump, I can like obtain the same height with 1 jump and only get locked once. Right? So minimizing animation locks, very important. That's why I don't like using triple jump. You only get 1 animation lock, you know, and you're good. Depending on the handling speed of your weapon, that animation lock's gonna be faster. When it comes to changing your direction, triple jump is terrible. I'll show you. So this is me strafing right and jumping control jump, right? You'll see the distance. Pretty consistent though. If I want to do left, I can do the same thing, but I'm in the air a lot longer. Jump, hold. Super long time. Tap, tap, right? Now, if you look at the shape that I created while doing that, you can kind of see that it is a little bit different, and it might be harder to track because it looks like an elongated M, and it goes up like this. You know,
You're evenly matched.
some people might have a hard time tracking that compared to like a standard control jump, but I still think strafe jump is way more important, even if it simplifies my hitbox. It might give me more height than I intend sometimes, but it allows me to sometimes separate myself between, you know, shotgun distance. And if I know when my shotgun is in 1-hit kill range, then I might have an advantage over someone else who doesn't understand where their shotgun 1-hit kill range is. Triple jump will keep you too close to the ground if you tap it. Control jump does a pretty good job of giving you the momentum needed to then counter shotgun or counter bait doorways very quickly and consistently, right? And if you think about the quantity of inputs needed to bait a doorway, it's one simplistic jump for me and then controlling with WASD and my mouse versus multiple hits, right? Minimizing the quantity of actions needed to do certain things, just like the shade step thing, right? I hold 1 key with shade step, use my mouse to augment my player position, and then you're good instead of having to focus on holding 2. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. You know, if anyone has any last minute questions, we can probably answer those in quick play, but it's a pretty good overview on Hunter and complex movements and the way in which you want to try to operate in your 3-dimensional space. A lot of little things that go unnoticed when you're playing games, and sometimes it's difficult to talk about them, but I try to take some time off every once in a while to do stuff like this to try to like clue you in on why things are the way they are and why I think things are the way they are, because it'll really like helps people kind of like read between the lines. It's one thing to watch someone play video games a long time and learn some things here and there, but I can like basically create almost twice to like 3 times the potential knowledge gain from watching like myself play by talking about what I'm doing rather than just doing it, right? It's kind of like, you know, a professional athlete just running like laps all day and doing drills and then like expecting you to pick up on things. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that are happening that people just don't understand or know about because there's no dialogue, right? Personally, the reason why I got into streaming back in like D1 is because I really liked helping people and I really like playing games, and if I could do both at the same time, then fucking sweet. And as of late, I haven't really had that availability to help people. We don't have trials up. Playing comp is super stressful, and I don't want to try to subject people that I'm trying to help to like that kind of like, I don't know, that kind of side of my mentality. I have very little like forgiveness for a lack of competence when it comes to a competitive setting. I have like a different mode my brain enters, and I don't want to be a dick to anybody. So if this is a way that I can kind of achieve the whole helping nature, then so be it. We'll do more of this stuff.